Hey guys, welcome to day 21. Yes, I'm wearing a Sailor Moon shirt, but if you haven't noticed from the blanket that's usually behind me, or, this, I love Sailor Moon. Anyway, um, today I've actually been thinking, there's a hair, like attacking me. Today I've actually been thinking a lot about owning our own darkness and kind of what that means for me. And then I started taking all of the sort of knee jerk reaction, is what I like to call them, cards in the tarot. The cards that you flip over and you're just like, oh God, what is going to happen now? And I thought that I would kind of go through them and talk about sort of my experiences with them, my thoughts on them, and why I think it's important to learn from these lessons in order to heal. Because oftentimes we tend to mask our pain under the gauze of happiness, and honestly, it drives me nuts when people do that. It's such bullshit, and you're not doing yourself or anyone else a favor if you're doing this kind of stuff. Obviously, keep in mind, of course, like it's important to have a positive attitude, but I do see a large portion of it, so much so where it becomes a toxic situation. So I don't know, I'm just looking at all these cards and I keep thinking it's important to embrace the downs in life as well. Yeah, it doesn't feel good. It's never going to feel good, but we have to go through them in order to grow. So the first one I was going to bring up was the Ten of Swords, and I'm using the Rider-Waite-Smith Centennial Edition. This card, this is for me, this card is, when I get this card in a reading, I am like, I don't want to feel this way again. What's going to bring about making me feel this way again? And I do a reading at the beginning of every year. I do a 13 card spread, and then obviously the first 12 are each month, and then the 13th is just kind of the overall energy of the year. And for last month, I got this card, and so I was sitting here thinking, oh my gosh, dreading the whole year. What was going to happen? And what ended up happening was I had surgery, and I completely plummeted with my depression. I came to a point where I just didn't know what to do. I had hit the rock bottom. And I was like, I don't know what to do with my disease. I don't know where to go now. I am now in this stage of mourning where I feel like my body has completely betrayed me. And the reality of a chronic illness, having this with no cure, having this third surgery, which didn't do much. And where do we go from now? Here. But I started to realize that there is always other avenues. And it might suck, it might be hard, it might feel painful, it might be exhausting, but eventually you pull all of these swords out. And it's a slow process, but you do it. So that was kind of my reflection on the Ten of Swords for last month. It's not a fun card to get, but that's this does not feel good unless it's acupuncture. And I don't even think even then it's supposed to feel fantastic. I don't know, I've never had acupuncture, but I'm trying to be humorous here. Bear with me. So the next card is the Devil. And I got this card last October for my card of the month, and this was another one where I was like, great, what's going to happen in October? And the thing about the Devil is, we see these figures here, they have the chains around their neck, and they can very easily lift those over their heads. They could get out of this enchantment. They're not chained to, this devilly figure here. But the thing about the devil and what the devil potentially represents here is any sort of vice or bane that you might be struggling with, any sort of temptation. It could be a physical temptation or a thought process. And last October, in the case of me, it was a thought process. I had to slowly work through my experiences and move into a space where I wasn't letting the experience completely consume me, and that I had to be mindful of everything else that it affected. It was like the ripple effect. So I was not completely chained to what I was experiencing. I did pull the chain over my head, and I moved forward, and I learned from it. And that's something that I hope you take in mind when you get this card in your reading. What can you break yourself free from? The next card is the Tower. This card and I have a long history. As you can see, there's fire, there's lightning, there's people plummeting to their deaths. It's not a fun card. I wish I had pulled the deck out, but in the deck that I read with pretty much solely for a good 10 years before I started branching out into other tarot decks was the Revelations Tarot by Zach Wong. I've shared this deck on my channel before, I've talked about it, but in that deck, the Tower is basically ripped up by a tornado, and it talks about how this energy is something coming into your life and just uprooting everything, and you're standing there in the wake going, what just happened? Where do I go from here? How can I possibly pick up these pieces? And I have had so many experiences like this that I actually have reoccurring nightmares about storms, and it basically, to me, represents emotional turmoil. There are many, many times where this sort of theme has occurred in my life, where suddenly everything is uprooted. I don't know what's going on. I feel like I'm completely consumed by the destruction. But I've looked back on each experience that I've had, and I've picked my life back up. I've moved forward. I have rebuilt. I have done what I needed to do. And it's all because I saw everything that had fallen before me and basically thought, what else do we do now but pick up and move forward? What else do we do? What can you do? You know? It's the same in a literal sense. If a tornado rips through a town, it's devastating at first, but then eventually they rebuild. And it's just what we do. It's what we do. The next card is the Eight of Swords. So much like the Devil, this one really, let's see if I can get in here a little bit. There we go. Much like the Devil, this one really shows that she's bound. She's trapped. She's completely blinded and trapped by these swords. And again, I'll mention the Revelations Tarot. I really should have pulled that out for this video. I'm sorry, guys. That card has reversals on, or that deck has reversals on the cards. And one of my favorite things about the reversal for the Eight of Swords is you can see this woman just pulling the ropes off of her. In the upright position, she's clearly bound, but in the reversal, she's just pulling them off of her. And sometimes we have to be stuck, because then we learn to appreciate that we have actually had movement. And you can't appreciate movement without feeling stuck. At least I feel that way. There have been many, many times where I have felt uninspired, or you know, the torch has gone out in my creativity, for example, and eventually I move forward from being in this position of being stuck, and something changes. And again, you know, I seem to be getting a theme here where I'm saying you will have the kind of sort of cause and effect of negative brings about positive, which, let's be realistic, that isn't always the case. Sometimes it's negative, 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 and you're just like, what is happening? My whole world is crashing down on me. And it does not feel good. But that's my point, is that not most of this that happens isn't supposed to feel good. But we can't run from it either. Hence, this card, the Nine of Swords. It doesn't feel good to be up and have sleepless nights because you're riddled with anxiety, because your world is crashing down on you. You don't know what to do because it invades your every waking hour and your every hour that you should be sleeping. And sometimes we have to just go through the motion of the pain, because that's the horrible part about life, is that it is pain, but pain brings us a lesson. It always does. And the only thing that's consistent in life is change. The other two cards I'm gonna share are, adjusting here, Death, which really brings about the concept of change. As most of you know, very rarely does the Death card actually mean a physical death in tarot. But it mostly means that a cycle will come to an end, and then something else will come of that. And that's, again, that furthers the point of change is the only consistency in life. We are always constantly reinventing ourselves, recreating ourselves. We're always constantly being reborn in little facets of ourselves. I read earlier today that learning to love yourself is a constant thing. We think that we will just one day wake up and we will love ourselves and we will be whole and complete, and that's not realistic. That's not how this works. And we maybe one part of us that was a bane, that was weighing us down, will die, and then something else will come of it that we will start to be reborn from. But there are still other facets of us that need work, that need constant tender, I don't want to say tender, I guess adjusting or looking after, I guess, is really the term that I was going for. So that's why the concept of the Death card is so important to us, because it is that cyclic nature to life. See, I mean, the interesting part about the Rider-Waite-Smith is, you have Death on his horse, and my webcam not focusing. But you also have the sunrise in the background. If I can... There. Right. No, and now we have glare. Right there. Sunrise in the background. So I just thought that was interesting, too. Also, that the fact that the king is the one that is on the ground at Death's feet, showing that death, be it metaphorically or literal, comes for everybody. So no matter what, you are going to go through many little deaths and rebirths in your life. Sorry, I felt like I had to sneeze. The last card is the Three of Swords that I want to talk about, and this one is just... So, not so much the imagery of the Rider-Waite-Smith, and this card I actually did pull out in preparation for this video because it was the one thing that I was actually prepared for. But this Three of Swords from the Sassurubito Tarot really spoke to me in the sense of she's looking down at the blades through her heart, and there's blood that's starting to appear. And she has this expression on her face like, oh my gosh, I'm in pain. I've been struck through the heart. And I've been going this whole time without realizing the heaviness of my pain. This is something that we do constantly because we try to pretend like everything is okay. And we try to tell ourselves that we can't feel these negative things. We can't embrace our shadow. We can't... We're told not to cry. We're told not to emote. We're told not to feel, which is just so inherently wrong to me. And I get very worked up about this sort of thing because I am so sensitive. I feel all the time to an intensity that sometimes completely overwhelms me. And it's really hard for me to be in a world where you're constantly told not to feel. I have tried to fool myself into thinking that that was acceptable, and then I go and I experience this, and this does not feel good. This right here, that's pretty terrible. That is not something that we should feel, at least to the degree of this. I mean, we're going to eventually at some point, because that's life, it happens, but it's so important to sit with our pain and let it have its space sometimes. I was a little apprehensive to talk about this, only because I didn't want people to think like, oh, you're being negative, but I just feel that this is important. I feel it's important to feel sadness, feel despair, feel grief, feel pain, look around you and think, my God, I am standing in the wake of this complete, absolute mess of my life, and I don't know where to go from here. But the point is that you will go somewhere from there, and where you go is up to you. And if you choose to ignore your pain, you're not going to get anywhere. So I hope you guys enjoyed my ramble, kind of talking about tarot cards and owning up to our pain. It's just something I've been thinking about so much today, and just with some of my experiences lately, I'm not sure. I just figured I'd share it with you guys for today's video. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed watching, and tomorrow will be, I don't know, we'll find out. I'll see you guys in my video for tomorrow.